Hi, welcome back to 1/6 RC Tank Workshop. I'm John. In the last video, I added all the tools and accessories to the Panzer IV. In this video, I'm going to start work on the turret. I'll show you the work on the turret so far. So first we'll have a look at the parts I have already. But there's still a lot more work needed and some parts to be made. So let's have a look at the turret now and see what's done so far. I had started applying the zimmerit coating to the front of the turret, but this section here needs some zimmerit as well. First of all, a piece I have to make for the front, and also there's a detail to go in here. I believe it's an oiling point for the recoil. Some other details I've added already. I've started adding some of the details here. These are fake screw holes. I've textured also. Just like on the hull, I'll use Mr. Surfacer 500 all over to give that rolled steel effect. As we look at the cupola, I've altered the cupola. I've started to texture it. It was machined aluminium, but also I've replaced the very basic armoured covers for the viewports with my own version. These ones have cast numbers moulded in. They're made of white metal and are available in the workshop, so I'll be fitting them permanently. I've also fitted the bullet ring here. You can just see on the interior of the cupola, I've made the viewports. These are functional, they can flap down, and you can fit the viewport inside. Like the viewport for the driver, I'm going to put clear polycarbonate viewports in. I'll also fit the protection pads here. You can see the cupola hatch has no detail whatsoever. I'll fully detail that with locking mechanism and head pad. It's very basic at the moment. I've added scale screws here and also drain holes around the side. The gunner's viewport. The kit part was just a basic part that's screwed on. I'm making something more functional. And again, I'll fit a polycarbonate block into this. The side hatches for both the gunner and the loader were supplied with the kit and our armour packs, but they were not very detailed, so I've added a lot of my own detail. I fitted functioning pistol ports. With cast marks. So that's interior and exterior detail. A working locking mechanism. The viewports are available from the workshop. We have working hatch mechanisms. As part of the viewport kit, it comes with the new exterior section of the viewport. Here on the loader side, again we have the hatches. With viewport, I'll be replacing this resin viewport with clear polycarbonate. We have locking catch mechanisms. And on the other side, the pistol port. The rear turret box has been modified. I've removed all the machining marks. This is actually a block of aluminium. I've made new hinges, a new lid for the back rather than the flat piece of steel. I've added rivet detail, working catches, and here you can see the lid, which is made in brass. I was considering making the full box in brass, but I think this is acceptable as it is. So I'm going to start with some basics. I'm going to add Mr. Surfacer 500, but I'm using a sponge this time rather than a brush. I'll try see how that works. So just a random application all over the rolled steel armour areas. I'm applying the Mr. Surfacer 500 all over. And now do the other side. You can apply it with an old brush as well, but it really does ruin the brush. I'm finding the sponge is much better and it costs nothing. So now let's move on to the front section of the gun. I fitted this brass ring, and I'll have to put some zimmerit in this section. I'll also be adding some cone head screws, dummy cone head screws. I made these before in the Panzer III videos. And here we have the cone head screws fitted. So later I'll get to work on adding the zimmerit and some weld lines. Here we have another piece not included with the kit. These are the drainage pieces for over the hatches. So I've made these in brass and I'll fit them with 5 countersunk screws. You can see I've now added the drainage sills. They're held in place with 5 countersunk screws, and these grab handles also, again not part of the kit, but these are added now as well. Here's another little addition now. This is the filler point for lubricating the recoil mechanism. Next I'll need to put zimmerit on this area, and also there's some weld lines to go on. So next let's roll out some Milliput to make the zimmerit for the gun section. I'm putting the Milliput between 2 pieces of baking parchment or greaseproof paper. I'll press it down first. Try to work it as much as I can, and then with an old rolling pin I'm just going to keep rolling. I'm going to try to roll it to within about 1 to 1.5 millimeters. I like to do it on this hard granite surface. Seems to make it a bit easier, so I just keep rolling. When it seems to stop expanding, it's worth taking the paper apart, peeling the paper away on both sides. You can see the Milliput is quite thin now. But now that I've taken the paper away, I'll put it back on, replace the paper and start rolling again. This will enable me to get the Milliput even thinner. It was just a very small piece of Milliput, but I can keep working it. That small piece will probably be enough to do the job. And this will be the final few rolls. And that's about as thin as I can get it. So now it's ready to start. Just peel away the paper. So I'm just going to lay out my Milliput. I'll work it in with my fingers. I can stretch it even more. I'll cut out the part I made earlier. I've just applied some Milliput weld around the gun. Sorry if I missed it on the video. The card went full. Looking at pictures, there's approximately 4 lines of zimmerit going in this direction. I've cut a small piece of brass with rounded corners just to make the zimmerit pattern. You just need to wet the tip of the sculpting tool occasionally to stop it from sticking. And now I'll do the next line. You need to try to keep your fingers clear of the work you've just completed. And I can just pull it back from that detail. And I've completed the side section off camera. So now I've completed the zimmerit in this area. I'll leave that to dry for a few hours, and in the meantime stay away from it just in case I destroy it. Another tiny detail to note are these two small screws. It's similar to what you'd see in the Tiger. So I reckon there should be another two here and another two here, but I need to get at a better angle to put them in. I'm using 10BA countersunk screws, just very short ones. They would have kept the seal for the gun recoil in place. This hole here would be the location for the ventilation unit. For some reason I had one of these close defense weapons fitted there. I don't know whether that was what was included with the kit or whether I just put it there for some reason. I'm not too sure. But I don't have a vent for this. This is the vent from the Panzer III kit, so I'll be making something similar but a bit more detailed. Some of the Model H's, when they came out, these parts were not available yet. This is the close defense weapon. It would have been fitted right beside the ventilator, but in many cases the vehicles went out without these fitted and they were just blanked off with a cover. You can see here on this Dragon model's late Panzer IV it has the air vent. It doesn't have the close defense weapon. The hole has been blanked off. So now it's onto the lathe. I've got a piece of aluminium in the chuck and I'm going to try to make a new air vent. I think the part supplied the close defense weapon was not appropriate for this vehicle. It's a late Model H. In many vehicles at the time, the roof either had no hole for the close defense weapon or else was blanked off. The plan has now changed as to how to make the part, but I'm still using the piece I was originally working on. So this piece will now make the top of the vent. And now we have a final pass just to get a really nice finish on the top of the vent. I'm now just marking out the holes in the top of the air vent. .60 degrees apart. I want to use some countersink screws. So I'm just going to make some countersinks now. And that's the top of the air vent. This is the bottom section of the air vent. And it'll fit on like this. And here we have the finished air vent. I've done this so many times on the channel already, but I'll do it again for anybody who didn't watch the other videos. This is making weld lines. It doesn't take much Milliput, so I just take a very small piece. That'll make quite a bit of a weld. It's really important to mix them thoroughly, so give it a good 2 minutes. Well mixed now. I'm just going to take a small piece. Roll it out to a thin sausage shape. How thick you go will depend on the size of the welds you want to do. It's much easier without the rubber gloves. Okay, that's a few good pieces there. Before trying to put the Milliput weld in, I've used one of these Dremel type tools just to rough up where I'm going to put the weld. That'll hopefully give better adhesion of the Milliput. So I'm just gently putting it in place. With Milliput, it helps if you keep the tip of the tool fairly wet. This is my own homemade Milliput tool. I've showed you this in previous videos. It's just a piece of aluminium tube with a narrower piece of aluminium tube stuck into the other end and a similar profile for different size welds. So that's my turret welds complete. I've also put a few welds around the grab rails where they're fitted in. Next I'll show you what I've done with the commander's cupola. I've always wanted to find some way to make these armoured inserts operational in some way, but I've given up on that. There's still a huge improvement over the kit parts, which were just blobs of white metal. I've now used epoxy glue to stick them in the open position. I've also fitted the new viewport optics, and I've changed the old resin ones that I had fitted originally for these clear polycarbonates. They're perfectly clear. For the viewport doors, I fitted small magnets. It would have been much easier if I could get them out of the cupola, but they're well epoxied in. But for future, it's the way I would do it. And that stops the doors from flapping around while driving. I've also started work on the commander's cupola, and I'm working on a locking mechanism. This one is still just in trial. And here I'll fit a leather head pad. Also around the edge here I've milled out around the channel where I'll fit some fine shrink wrap, which works well as a rubber seal. Moving on down to the side crew hatches, I've also fitted clear optics into those. It looks much better than the old resin pieces. There is a small catch that's supposed to be fitted down here. I think I have the Armortek version. It's not functional at all, but I might just fit it anyway, because with the shirts in, it's not going to get much attention. this front viewport for the gunner. I've also fitted clear polycarbonate in there. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget, if you liked the video, hit that subscribe button. I'll put another video here and another one here at the end, and some photographs. See you again soon.